Now, Bethlehem is an ordinary Arab market town, except that its people are Christian Arabs, many of whom are said to have Crusader blood in their veins. The women go unveiled. The headdresses they wear are a medieval European fashion introduced by the Crusaders. Life in the villages of Palestine looks much like the life in other Mediterranean countries such as Cyprus or Sicily. The same market scenes and the same village industries. And in Jerusalem, in spite of the changes of recent years, the streets in the heart of the old city remain untouched. Every corner has sacred associations for the Jews, the Arabs, or the Christians. In Old Jerusalem are the Orthodox Jews, some of whose ancestors have lived there for hundreds of years. They are a separate community from most of the European Zionist immigrants. In the old city, the Orthodox Jews and the Arabs live side by side in peace. Jerusalem is entirely surrounded by battlemented walls and gates. Also surrounded by ancient walls is the port of Acca, which was once the strategic key to the whole of Palestine. Acca was last besieged by Napoleon. Now it is a quiet seaside town. Inland, another small town is Beersheba. Tribal courts are held there, and Bedouin chiefs foregather to attend them. The ordinary people of Palestine ask nothing better than to be left in peace. These Bedouins lead a quiet and prosperous life, comparatively undisturbed by the tension and uncertainty of the last 25 years. From Beersheba in the south to Lake Hula in the extreme north of Palestine, the same Arab peasants can be seen watering their herds of cattle, goats, and buffaloes. In the Sea of Galilee, the Arabs still fish with the same kind of nets that were used by the disciples. Harvesting in the traditional manner is even more primitive. Threshing and winnowing are still carried on with the same methods as were used in the Old Testament times. And this is the age-old way of drawing water. Without man-made irrigation, much of Palestine would be desert. This is the way of the past.
And this is the way of the future. In the upper Jordan Valley stands a giant hydroelectric plant. The power it generates is used to pump up water for irrigation on a wide scale. Irrigation means prosperity. Whatever the political future of Palestine, the British government is determined that on the land, both Arab and Jew alike shall enjoy the benefits of Western science. Modern Palestine is a country of growing wealth and productivity, both agricultural and mineral. The waters of the Dead Sea contain more than 25% salt and chemicals. They are being made to yield potash, bromide, and magnesium chloride in sufficient quantities to supply the needs of the entire world. Haifa, in the north of Palestine, is the terminus of the oil pipeline across the desert from Iraq. In 25 years of British rule, Haifa has become one of the major ports of the eastern Mediterranean. Both Haifa and Jaffa, further south, are the ports for oranges. In normal times, oranges make up more than half the total export trade of Palestine. They are grown by Arabs and Jews, side by side, on neighboring plantations. Flourishing banana plantations have grown up at Jericho, a green oasis in the Dead Sea Valley. They are the product of Arab capital and planned irrigation. In many parts of the industries are growing up. Both Arab and Jewish firms manufacture soap from olive oil. The Arabs are replacing their old hand looms with machines. The textiles they produce are used to turn out modern clothes. And the cities themselves are changing too. Jerusalem, Haifa, and many others can now show scenes like these, with wide, spacious streets and fine modern buildings. The new YMCA building at Jerusalem was endowed with money from the United States. The tower which surmounts it is a landmark visible far and wide. Another landmark is Government House. Also at Jerusalem is the Archaeological Museum. This building is the headquarters of the Department of Antiquities. It houses remains from some 2,000 historical sites and monuments all over Palestine. In the Middle Ages, Arab culture and scholarship were famous throughout the world. Now, young Arabs seek to revive their traditions in modern dress. At the Government Arab College, they are learning not only the Western alphabet, but the subject matter and the methods of modern education. They are casting off the ways of centuries to become citizens of the modern world. They are absorbing.
Hundreds of feet below sea level, through an arid and scorching valley, flows the River Jordan. Its course runs from north to south, from the Sea of Galilee to the Dead Sea. Between the Jordan and the Mediterranean lies Palestine. Everywhere in Palestine, even down in the valley through which the Jordan winds, are the ruins of the past. Mounds of earth mark the site of the biblical city of Jericho, whose walls came tumbling. On the road from Jerusalem of Joseph. At Capernaum in northern Palestine are the remains of a synagogue built in Roman times. It was here that Jesus preached and performed many of his miracles. On the shore of the Mediterranean stands the medieval fortress of Athlete. This was the last great stronghold of the Crusaders in Palestine. Some Crusader churches have in the course of time been converted into mosques. For ever since the end of the Crusades, the dominant religion in this land of many religions has been Mohammedanism. At Jerusalem, on the very site where once stood the great Jewish temple of biblical times, now stands the Dome of the Rock. After Mecca, this mosque is one of the foremost amongst the holy places of Islam. It is built over the rock from which Muhammad is supposed to have ascended to heaven. These sheikhs wear special turbans to signify that they are Muslim religious teachers, and the Christians of all denominations also flock to Jerusalem. The Patriarch of Moscow comes to visit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which stands over the place where Christ was buried. Different shrines and altars are set apart for no less than 6 Christian churches: the Eastern Orthodox, the Syrians, the Roman Catholics, the Armenians, the Copts, and the Abyssinians. Their adherents all hold separate services inside the same building. Over Palestine, there are Christian churches and monasteries. A Roman Catholic church called the Church of All Nations stands in the Garden of Gethsemane. On the side of the Mount of Temptation, at the place where Christ stood and surveyed the world with the devil at his side, there is a Greek Orthodox monastery. At Nazareth, where the Holy Family lived, are many churches. And at Bethlehem is the Church of the Nativity. To keep out intruders, this specially sacred church can only be entered by a single tiny door. Beneath the church itself there is a cave, in the floor of which is a star, marking the place where the manger stood.